everybody, and welcome to the Up Zone where understanding simple. We are your two hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House Representative for the state of North Carolina, District 43, and myself, Tisha Waddell. I always put that S in the middle, and we've talked about why, because people will Google you and find the wrong person. I am Tisha S. Waddell, formerly a city council member for the city of Fayetteville, District 3. And we are going to get into the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. But before we do, how are you, Mr. Floyd?
Tish, I'm fine, but can you see me?
What? I can see you. Why you talk about my glasses?
I just asked a question. Don't be offensive because it look like they cover your whole face. I mean,
Yeah. Listen, okay. So, Mr. Floyd, look,
Yeah,
I like the old school look of like these remind me very much of, you remember Bewitched?
yeah.
These remind me of like the Bewitched glasses. So I went and ordered me a whole bunch of readers because apparently I have good eyesight, but my reading vision needs a little bit of assistance because I'm getting a little older. I don't ever see you wearing glasses. Why is that? Are your eyes just still working?
No, they're not working, but I can assure you that, that I'll leave it alone, Tish. I
Wait,
just
Floyd,
want
you
that.
said you said, can you see me?
I just
I
wanted
can
to
see
know.
you
I
real
mean,
good.
yeah, because they're covering your whole. I mean, they're covering your
I can
whole
see,
face.
look, from left to right. I can see you real good.
Okay, then I just wanted to know now. I thought there was a visual problem.
No,
But I
no,
did get my
no.
eye
Listen,
checked yesterday. Yeah.
listen, Mr. Fly. I went about a week ago. Let me tell you, y'all grown men, y'all have a way of saying what y'all want to say and don't be really worried about nobody's feelings. I was in the convenience store yesterday and ran into Dwight. You know Dwight who works with JJ, right?
Yeah.
He hadn't seen me in a while. So Floyd, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he was looking, trying to figure out who I was. So I pulled my sunglasses off. I said, "It's me, Tisha." And he was like, "Hey." So he walked over, he started laughing. And my father was standing beside me, right?
Mm.
Dwight walked over, he said, let me tell you why I was trying to figure out who you were. I said, "Why?" He said, "You gained a little weight." Lord, I just looked at him. I said, "You know you ain't supposed to tell no woman that." But I
Well,
told him,
well,
I said,
I,
"Yeah, I did about 30 pounds."
I think most people know when they increase and decrease. You don't have to
We
remind
sure
people.
do. You ain't got to tell
You don't have to
us.
remind people. That's one
But I'm
thing
gonna
you
tell
don't
you,
have to do.
but Floyd, sometimes, and a lot of people who gain weight, we will say this because sometimes we don't realize how much weight we've gained, and people do need to be honest with us sometimes and be like, "Baby, you packing them on, like fix that."
Well, sometimes it's fixable and sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But I have
Sometimes.
lost because we've been talking about it. You, me, and Ted, we were talking about it a while ago, and you told me black coffee, no sugar, just black coffee. Well, I can't do black coffee, but I did stop the sugar.
Yeah.
So I've lost about 10 pounds, and I'm just gonna keep
Mm.
walking, and I'm gonna just do the things because I want to be healthy, Mr. Floyd. I want to be older and still able to move my body.
Well,
So
well, we always talk about our ability to say no to drugs.
yeah, we need to
And
say
we
no to
always
the
got to say
fried
no
chicken.
to food. You know, we also got to be able to say no to certain kinds of food. You know.
Absolutely. But look, speaking of JJ, Mr. Floyd, we do have a forum coming up,
Yeah, yeah.
and it is going to be our general election forum. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be on October the 17th.
The 17th, which is a Tuesday.
Right. And it is going to stream live. So the same way we did the last forum. Our moderator will be the same woman, Miss Amanda Williams. She was phenomenal. So we were like, why reinvent the wheel? Just like we gave her autonomy with the questions the last time, she will have autonomy with the questions this time. I think she did a great job. So she's going to moderate. We have sponsors. We've got sponsors for this event. So our sponsors are, we've got Rogers Law Firm.
Yes.
We've got JJ over at Fayetteville Press. And then we've got, tell me the name of the bail bondsman company
I
because I
think
don't want to say it
it's
incorrectly.
William at Fayetteville. There's Bell Bondsman on Gillespie on Gillespie Street, and
That's right.
then we
That's right.
have on the road. Got the gentleman name, but we will list those to indicate that they are, supported, you know, of the
This
forum,
forum.
and they have agreed to do that. Many of them like what
Absolutely.
they saw in the last forum that we had, and they agreed to be a part of it. So,
And of
so
course, we are very appreciative of that because these forums do cost us money to put on. So it is wonderful to have somebody come on board and say, hey, we like what you're doing and we want to be a part of it.
and like I said, we're going to list those sponsors, showing that people can know that, and
Absolutely.
it can
Support the
be,
people who support us.
yeah, yes.
Yeah,
So
support the people who support us. And I'm gonna tell you, Floyd, even before Rogers Law firm made a contribution to our forum, I have always, whenever anybody needs a defense attorney, I tend to point them in his direction because defense law is not pretty. You understand what I'm saying?
how
And the
well I
people
do.
who yeah, and the people who perform that type of service are usually sometimes very vilified in our community because they got to represent all
Well,
kind of folks. But he does a good job. I can't, can't take that from him.
well, when you look at it, and you look at how many people are incarcerated, you can see the importance of his law firm.
That's
That
right.
63% of those persons that are incarcerated are persons from 301.
And the
Yeah,
law says that you are innocent until proven guilty. And
guilty,
so
and
everybody deserves a good attorney.
that's where they come in at to 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 assist you uh,
That's right.
of
That's
that.
right.
But also, uh, they, the form is after the election, which ends Saturday
Yes.
at 3 o'clock,
So
and
early voting ends Saturday at 3 o'clock, right?
at 3 o'clock, and it's owned at the Board of Election now from 8 to 5, and reading one
Fountainhead
article
Lane. If you want to go vote now, Fountainhead Lane.
about the headline, and it's behind the Cape Fear Hospital on
Yes. Highsmith, behind
well,
Highsmith.
Hospital,
Yep,
Hospital.
yep, yep.
But I was talking to someone yesterday, and
Mm-hmm.
he expressed that about 700 people out of about 78,000 have voted. Again,
Mm.
T, we're talking about the minority population controlling the majority population in their selection of who they want to represent them. So now remember, now it's the minority population controlling the majority population who are going to complain about the minority population controlling them after the election.
But now, but listen, let's hold out hope because like I have not gone to vote yet. I don't particular the only time I've ever done early voting is when I was running for office or if I was working a poll because I was already up there. But I like to wait until day of, Floyd, because sometimes stuff comes out, and you're like, oh, I wish I could change my vote. But it's too late because you've already voted.
But percentage wise, as we know, you will get a greater voter turnout if the election was doing a presidential election.
Absolutely.
I mean, but
Absolutely.
when you have it off like this,
Have low
you're not going
turnout.
to have that voter turnout. So if the council not to extend the year term, but to change the election to coincide with the presidential election, it would be much cheaper on the taxpayer also.
Absolutely. So a basic race, a person, and when I say basic, I mean, neither side really drives out their district. A basic race, somebody's going to win with a couple hundred votes.
Well, it has shown, if it stays on track, it would surprise me if we reach 20,000.
Mm.
It would surprise me if the voter turnout will reach that that number. I think it could be four less than that. But I intend to vote because some a little bit younger and a little bit older than you, T. Some gave all so I can vote.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And so
if I may say, we have a greater voter turnout when we had only one day, a greater and a more effective voter turnout. Now we got 15 plus
Lord, we're
days.
burnt out. We're burnt out. We are burnt out. It's like all the time we're talking about going to the polls. We are burned out.
Well, you're gonna be now. I can understand that, but that's where changes take place. Is at the polling place. You may not like it, but how can you complain about driving while black, as an example, when you don't participate in the process to effect changes? Uh, you know,
Absolutely. But
so
we always say, Floyd, not just participating in the process, but holding people accountable. Because most of us are sick of we go out and we vote. We expect for you to do what we send you out there to do. And then you get to where you're going and nothing changes.
well, and that goes to something else that that a lot of people have talked to me about. It's what you call voodoo economics.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, changes just doesn't take place because you went to the polling site and voted. Change is a process that takes place over a period of time by that person who you asked, who you voted for, because he or she indicated that he or she is going to do something that you think that is going to help your community. So you begin to track and you begin to look at that person. For someone to tell me that he built that building over there across the street from my house in 1 year, then I got to look at him. Either I need to be, it's before your time now, either I need to be in Dorothy Dix or he need to be in Dorothy Dix or she needs to be in Dorothy Dix.
Because we're
I'm
going to
not
talk
having
about
it. Yeah,
that process because it takes a long time to see ground break.
but see,
Absolutely. But before we talk about that, let's make mention of one more announcement before we get into some of that procedural stuff. We are we are hosting the memorial service for Ted Moan.
yes,
Now, I did have somebody who asked me a question because they Ted passed a month or so ago. And so they
yes.
were like, okay, when is the memorial service? The memorial service is October the 15th. It's a Sunday. It will begin at 3 o'clock. It is going to be hosted at the Bill Crisp Senior Center. We've got seating for a little over 200 people. There is an overflow area, so we certainly are opening this up to the public. Ted's family will be coming in town from out of town to celebrate his life and his legacy with us. So come out, support this event so that his family can feel the love and the appreciation that this community has for one leaders in from this area, Mr. Theodore Ted. I call him Theodore Ted Moan. um so that again we just want to remember his life and legacy, support his family through this transition, and just close this chapter in our community effectively. So October the 15th, 3 p.m., Bill Crisp Senior Center. Make sure that you tell somebody, share the information, let your people know, because we know that so many people really liked Ted. They really liked him, even if they just liked to see him stir the pot a little bit with the government to get people talking about what's going on. There's so much happening now, and there's no graphics, no charts on Facebook because we don't have our town crier anymore. So come out and show your love, show your support. October 15th, 3 p.m., Bill Crisp Senior Center. Now, Mr. Floyd,
Hmm.
let's talk about let's just go ahead and get to it. One more announcement. City of Fayetteville is going to be having a special meeting November the 1st, 2023, 10 a.m. They're going to be talking about city council policies. It's been a long time coming. The reason that this conversation is important is because currently there are so many things that happen. I will take you back to the Bernhardt conversation that transpired that was completely outside of the scope of the city council policy, but was permitted to move forward because policy has been unclear, undefined, or unadhered to heretofore. So this is an important conversation that the community should be tuning into. If you are able to make it, it will be held at the, I gotta find out, but I'll put it up on our Facebook page. And the last thing is there's going to be a community march against violence. It will begin at 10 a.m. and it will start at 2873 Owen Drive, and it is going to be inclusive of a few different agencies that are going to be marching against the violence that we're seeing happening in our community. So those are our announcements. As they say at the church house, govern yourself accordingly. Floyd, let's talk about, excuse me, let's talk about from conception to groundbreaking. What does that look like? Because you mentioned it. You said if somebody says in a year, I was able to get that building up, you're going to say either you need to be in Dorothea Dix or they do. And for the people who don't know, Dorothea Dix was the place that people who were having some mental challenges had to go sit for a little while. What does that process really look like?
Well, it starts from an idea, T. Is that if you're sitting on a governing board, uh, for, for instance, let's just look at the Crown Center. Okay,
Let's look at that. Let's go with that.
okay. I mean, it started from back when the county said that the Fed indicated that the present center is not in compliance with ADA.
Well, actually, Floyd, let's go back even further than that. Let's go back a little further because this conversation for the Crown Center actually tracks back to Vision 2026 when they laid out and said, these are the things that we want to see happen in our community by 2026. And that was well over 10 years ago.
Well, you see, and all these, and then like you said, the eggs begin to be scrambled. Okay, how do we do this? You have to. I hope that you don't want to be $131 million facility without having the architect involved into that plan. So you have to get that architect. You have to find out whether local government is going to allow you to issue bonds or go and seek that amount of money, on the open market, privacy, whatever you want to call it. Okay, they determine that. Then once they do that, then you have to look at, can I find an architect to do that? That person will then draw your plan, but then you got that old person said no, that's a plumber. He got to be involved into it. Then you got that electrical person waiting for
Right.
his opportunity to get his part in there, the mechanical part in there. Now jumping fast forward and coming back, then you have to look at the if you look at what they doing at Cape Fear Valley, somebody had to draw the plan there. Now they're putting the glass on the outside so they can work on the inside with the plumbers and the electrical
Absolutely.
people to keep the project going. So it's a long process to get the because wiring and the electrical plumbing and all that is important, and
And
that's
let's go
going
back
in
and absolutely.
the
Let's go
ground.
back, Mr. For sure. Let's go back and use the example that you said about the Coliseum, the Crown Center.
Mhm.
So before they could even, so 10 years, well over 10 years ago, somebody said, we need a new center. So then the county began to dissect, okay, well, what's wrong with the old one, right? So then, like you said, they uncovered what was wrong. So you got six people on the board. These six people are having a conversation. First, you got to go through the process of getting the board to decide an important conversation. That doesn't take a day. So once the board decides this is an important conversation, then you got to get the board to go to staff and say, research this. Again, that doesn't take a day. Staff goes and does the research. Then they come back and they make their presentations. Then you got to get the board to review the information. Now, we still just talking about the initial, is this important conversation. Then you got to have the county commissioners review that information. So then after they review the information, they got to decide, now how do we want to move forward? So you've gone from, yes, we want to actually talk about this. Then you have a process. Then you go to, how do we want to talk about this? Then you repeat that whole process again. Staff goes out, they bring you back some ideas. Then you got to decide, okay, which idea you like. Then you go through, where do we want to do this at? So now we're on the third round of, and by this time, you didn't had a new election, because this stuff doesn't happen every meeting. So you got a meeting, then you may have 3 or 4 months. Then you got another meeting. Then you may have 3 or 4 more months. Then you got another meeting. Then you may have 2 years. But it's always ongoing in the background, because even as all of this is going on, now staff is going, and you mentioned this, staff is now saying, okay, this is on our board's mind. So let's start planning the budget so that the budget can reflect the fact that they are considering this. So then they start putting money to the side. So then you got to vote on the budget and decide if, so there's all of these components that you don't see or hear about that are happening behind the scenes that take years before you ever even get to the outward facing conversation of, hey guys, we want to we want to put it somewhere else. Then when you get there, then you got to decide where you're going to put it. So now let's liken this to bridges. We'll just use bridges as an example. If there's bridges all over the city of Fayetteville, Floyd, well, you got bridges in your district. I got bridges in my district. So now we got to fight it out to see whose bridges are going to get fixed first, right? So now you got to have staff go out and evaluate the bridges so that they can come back and say, these bridges are in the most need. So then you get a plan. You get a plan that says, here's the order in which we need to repair the bridges. So once you have a plan, then you got to figure out how much it's going to cost, right? So now you got to have somebody go out and do the financial evaluation. How much is it going to cost to repair these bridges? Once you get that, you got to find the money. This takes years.
Well, I'm glad you understanding. I'm glad, I'm glad you understanding that. You see why I said to you at first, either I need to be in Dorothy Dix, or you
or
need to
the
be in Dorothy Dix. Okay, see that's the thing there, because it's a planning, process there.
right.
And let's just fast forward to some other projects. With the city wanted to build an athletic field in conjunction with Fort Bragg. There was
Yes.
planning there to get Fort Bragg, because Fort Bragg had the property. And so you
And
had
this
to
was
go
when
to Fort
we
Bragg.
had money, Floyd. We had money at that time when we started that conversation.
Yeah, but you had money, but it's a
But
process
we didn't
there.
have no plan.
I mean, but you had
Yeah,
a plan to go and seek grants, and that's what government does. And grants is a gamble, as you well
absolutely.
know. It's a gamble whether or not you're gonna get it or you're not gonna get it, and your planning depends on whether or not you can get this grant to jumpstart economic development. Okay,
Absolutely.
so so when people start saying, as a public person, and use the word "I," it's misleading.
Absolutely. And I'll
It's
tell you,
misleading.
I'm going to give a different example because this is something that meant a lot to me, but that I never tried to take credit for. Infrastructure throughout the entire city of Fayetteville was the thing that I stood on. I wasn't the public safety girl. I was the woman who was concerned about infrastructure, sidewalks, repaving streets, and making sure that water was going where water was supposed to go. Okay. Those were my passions. When I got into office, Floyd, I recognized that the people who had gone before me, and so I will give Mitch and the council that was before me the credit for this. And I always did. They already identified a plan for where they wanted sidewalks to go and which streets needed resurfacing. They had already hired the engineers to go out and do the research. The only thing that I had to fight for was money in the budget because the plan was already in place. And so I spent the 4 years that I was on council fighting for money in the budget. Let me give you one more example. When I got in office, there were two places that they wanted a crosswalk and a street light. They wanted a crosswalk over off Yadkin Road because people were trying to cross the street and they were having a hard time. And they wanted a street light over there off Walker, where Walker coming out of Tiffany Pines intersects with, Rose Hill. So that was a new project. I started working on that project when I got in office in 2017. The street light went up in 2022, like the end of 2022, early part of 2023.
Yeah.
That's 6 years, Floyd. I mean, and it had been approved by the time we hit about 2019, 2020. It had been approved pending funding.
From where?
Pending funding from, I want to say it was, I
Department
don't
of
know if it was,
Transportation.
I was about to say, I think
Department
it
of
was DOT.
Department of Transportation. Okay.
Right,
You see,
right.
so now you got to ask DOT.
Another
I mean,
layer. Right.
you know, will they fund this project? Okay.
Right.
And then they have to get that funding from the state in
Right.
order for that stoplight to go up. Because
Right.
they just they only can spend what's in the budget for them to spend.
Right.
They
So if you see
because
if you see any elected official take credit for infrastructure or take credit for building new facilities within their first term, they are usually either trying to mislead you in order to pad, or they really don't understand the process, one or the other. Because typically, when you see, just like when I came on, hey, we raised the baseball stadium. It was the council that I was on that was responsible for seeing the baseball stadium come up out the ground and the first ball be hit across that field. We didn't have nothing to do with that, Floyd. We just got to
when
reap the benefit.
I I I really hope that you did because you were part of that one that built this deck, this
But
parking deck.
and listen, baby, and listen,
With
and
no
I didn't even
elevator.
really have
I know.
anything to do with that.
You call that group that built a 4-story parking deck
Absolutely.
with no
Absolutely.
elevators. With no elevators. Now, how can you imagine building a parking deck,
With no
you know,
elevator.
with no elevator?
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it comes with planning, and it's hard to say, well, depending on who you're selling it to, that you can build the parking deck, and later you're gonna install an elevator with the hope that somebody gonna put something on the top of it. Planning,
Right.
and that
Right.
plan failed too. So it's all
But you're not,
about planning.
but what you're not gonna be able to do is if anybody watches the up zone, you're not gonna be able to give them any wooden nickels because they will understand politics because we will
Yeah,
make it simple. So for the purposes of this conversation, just know it takes a long time before you see the thing actually happen. It takes, now
it
you'll
is.
see somebody can stand up a committee in a couple of weeks, like that you'll see. But the actual labor of that committee, the fruit of that committee, it takes a while before you see that. Government moves slowly.
Let's say that one thing that we have talked about, and we have hopefully that we have made that conversation a little bit simpler
Yes,
for the person who wants to look at projects that is taking place by by government. Now, we have talked about this along with the chief of police, talked about blighted areas. Now, I
absolutely.
want to commend the council for moving forward with looking at this. And they are going to appoint a committee that's going to look at uh, houses in 301 and other parts of our community that are substandard.
Hmm.
So they're
Now,
going
I'm
to,
glad you mentioned that because when I saw that article, Floyd, I said, boy, thank you, Derek Thompson, for paying attention to the up zone because you, Mr. Floyd, have been talking about, we showed this picture months ago.
yes,
And you have been talking for since the inception of you and I being on the when we were rude before we were up zone. You were talking about code enforcement and its impact on a community. This has been something that you have been deliberate about discussing, and it almost sounded like you were being quoted in that article when the statement was being made about, hey, there's a necessity to ramp up code enforcement. We need to be deliberate about code enforcement. So, Mr. Floyd, I want to commend you for being a visionary and a trailblazer, because hey, now we see the council taking action in regards to code enforcement.
Well, this picture, this picture here. Now that if you can look in between that, those there is hedges on both sides, but you can see the growth of those hedges. And
Yeah,
if you
because those
look
are
in
supposed to be
between,
those cute little bushes, right? That are
yes, yes,
neatly trimmed.
that's what it is today. Now, if you look in between those hedges, there's a house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that house just didn't get like that in 1 to 2 years.
Mm-mm.
It got like that because of years. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how can local government let that sit in the midst of a community when all the people around there have provided, the house is vacant, by the way, uh, have tried to maintain their property. At the same time, on this piece of property, my crawling neighbors, my four legged friends, and others would see that as a resting place, and it makes
Mm-hmm.
the community unsafe. So,
Absolutely.
this is something code can can do and can address to change this. And what they're saying is that they want to look at a committee of how we speed up code enforcement. And
Absolutely.
and it's a partnership between the city of Fayetteville, the homeowner, I mean property owner, this is rental, and the person who was presiding in there. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
most people that rent say to the tenant, it's your responsibility to cut the grass. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but if a violation is given to the tenant after one time, and then whatever, and then it's given to the property owner to cut the grass, the property owner is going to say, wait a minute now, I'm paying all these taxes and everything. Now you want me to come here and cut your grass? They're
Mm-hmm.
going to start looking at getting better tenants. And that's
You know
changed.
what? You know what we did, Floyd? I think that more property owners should shift to a model like this. We actually started incurring the expense to maintain the yards at the properties that we own. And we found that it was a, and this is why, because as a former council member and as a member of this community, it would grate my nerves to ride by one of our properties and see the yard look bad, because I took it personally. I felt like I was being a bad neighbor. Now our lawn looks fine because we maintained the lawn at the house that we live at. So I asked my husband, and see, this is the problem with capitalism that people don't often discuss. Sometimes we're so busy trying to maximize our profitability that we minimize our community engagement. And so I told my husband, I said, babe, we got to, we if it means we lose a couple $100 on revenue, we gain the respect of our neighbors by ensuring, and we maintain our property value by ensuring that the yard looks good. So we have incurred that expense, but that means that moving forward, Floyd, for the next tenants, because the tenants that are there now maybe don't get that increase, right? But when they leave, now that means that we're factoring in the cost of maintaining that yard. So either you're going to do it and keep up with it, or do it and you're going to pay for it either way.
Well, that's why I mean, it can work both ways. Sometimes the tenant will take the initiative to get them a lawnmower and cut the grass, and sometimes tenants. And so it depends on how you want to draw up that lease for
Right.
for the tenant. But at the same
Right. But
time,
ultimately it's the property owner's responsibility.
it's the property owner responsibility, but you also got to look at once the person comes in, there's always a lease agreement. I'm sorry, there
Absolutely.
should be a lease agreement
There should be.
spelling out the
Hmm.
terms and conditions of the
Hmm.
lease, and what your responsibilities are, and what the
And that
property.
yard should be a part of that. That no property should look the way that that picture looks that we put up. No property
Uh,
should look like.
Now think about that, T. Now that house, we just gonna use a raw figure. That house prior to was valued at $100,000. 30,000 of that was profit. I mean, was the land itself. 70,000 was the house itself.
It's the structure.
So if the
Hmm.
city do a demolition of that house, $70,000 automatically come off the city.
That's
Okay,
right.
they automatically lose $70,000. So suppose
Hmm.
because you don't have strong code enforcement, you allow this to take place. Suppose you had 1,000 of them, like the city indicated that they have. Okay, so look, you multiply 70 times 1,000, and you will see how much comes off the city tax roll. If this is a
Hmm.
continuation process, then we are going to have to look at how can we cover that loss, and that way teach them how to raise your taxes.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but that's how the game, is played. You know, so
Absolutely.
so we have to look at these things, and I salute the city for 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 doing this, and that moves us to another issue that I talked with you about is that how do we look at these things? It's like the city was working on a area of how we get these carts, off the street, Walmart carts, food
Yes.
line carts, and all. Well, after
That was
all this,
and that was one of those head scratcher conversations, Floyd, because as it was moving forward, and I was listening because I was on council then, and I was like, Mitch is about to drive this in the ground about these shopping carts. Because he was
you,
like a dog with a bone about it, man.
well, you know what? I mean, he was right in doing that
Yeah.
because of eyesore, and it just
And it
so
was a
happened
problem. It was a problem.
I went on Johnson Street at the request of a resident. I went there,
Hmm.
and at one corner, they had about 16 of those cars right at that corner. 16 of them.
Yeah.
Look like,
Yeah.
you bring
Looked
them
like
in
the
the
store was
store.
moving.
Yeah. So I understood. But lo and behold, after all of this work, there was a bill passed in September that said you can't do what you think that you can do. So that lead me to a
And that
point
bit, where was that bill passed at?
that that was the General Assembly.
So
At
at the state level.
at the
Hmm.
state level. So this is why I wish, again, just a gesture, and I don't know if the city has this or not. They ought to have a intern that goal is to become an attorney in their office to keep them abreast of what's going
Right.
on in the General Assembly. Now, the staff, I believe, like most staff are overworked. So
Absolutely.
if, if that staff person is that intern is tracking these bills that come through the General Assembly, it would save a lot of time as the city begin to advance.
Because they'd be able to come back and say, hey, y'all, there's no more action required on this because it's
Yeah,
illegal now.
yeah. You
Yeah.
see, they would advise the count. I mean, the city attorney on these things because they are tracking them. As an example,
You know what's interesting? Go ahead, sir.
yeah,
Go ahead.
as an example of when the General Assembly convenes for the long session, okay,
Hmm.
there's a time for introduction of bills, and then there's a cutoff date, and then there's a transfer. So that person will track those bills every day until that cutoff date to find out what committees that they're assigned to. Since it's
Right.
local government, they concentrate on the local government committee, and then they follow that bill in that committee and through a full vote on the House floor, and then over to that it meet crossover date, and go to the Senate. Now
Hmm.
that don't mean that the Senate's going to take it up. It just
Mhm.
crossed over in a period of time. Then they had to encourage the city, I mean the Senate, to hear that bill. But
Right.
see, don't mean now that I got to wait. If I can find a Senate bill that already came over, I can talk with the
There it
Senate
is.
person. Then I can
Uh-huh.
attach my little one sentence in
Right.
that bill. That's
But
all
let
I
me ask
want.
you this, Floyd. Let me ask you this, because the fact that, and you said that that bill took effect in September. Okay, so this conversation's been going on for at least 3 years. Okay, so where's the disconnect between local level issues? Because you would think if this is an issue, and again, the mayor was extremely vocal about this. He was adamant that something needed to be done. Brooke Redding went and did, who is a staff member for the city, went and did all of this extensive research over the last 3, 4, 5 years to be able to really dig into this issue, right? So, why was our delegation, or why didn't our delegation fight against, what could some of the, I know you can't speak for why they didn't, but what would some of the reasons be that our delegation did not take this back and say, "Hey, wait a minute, before you guys make this move, this is a concern for my constituency. So how can we mitigate you know what I'm saying?"
Well, one thing that you have to look at, Chief, is that many organizations have what you call association. There's a pact that's up
Mhm.
there in the General Assembly when it starts January and there until Revelation. Okay, they are constantly looking at what's transpired.
Got it. I
They're
got it.
constantly talking with legislators about
I
bills
got
that
it.
they support and bills they don't support. That's why I was saying that you have to have a staff person that's, I
Keeping you
mean, not
posted.
an intern, who will
But
track.
when you say the Merchants Association, Floyd, you talking about these stores. They're lobbyists. So their lobbyists are saying, "Hey, don't mess with our people. Our people are the tax drivers of these communities. Don't start trying to create laws that penalize them because their shopping carts walk away from their stores."
Well, that's why a wise person, would get their members of a delegation that they have concerns about and might not seem important, you know,
Yeah.
with the cost. Okay. But you always got a group out there for and against.
And
And
against.
if you can roll it over into a study bill, you get the for and against
And
in
the
one
against.
room, and everyone leave out of there with something to make the bill better or worse.
The art of negotiation.
Yes, you see. So that's why you roll it over and you get that body in there. And that but it's up to the speaker whether or not he put it into a study bill. But at the same time, you bring all of these differences together to work out the differences to make the bill again better or worse. Hopefully they make it better. So
Got
that's
it.
why it's so important to have that intern to assist the legal staff in tracking this information because the legal staff is have so much stuff on their plate that going over here getting a staff person, getting an attorney, just to sit there and look at what's coming in and what's coming out, of the general assembly. But one thing for sure that it's going to be assigned to local government. It's going to be assigned there. So that person will monitor that field.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. You
that
got to be at
subject,
the table in order to negotiate. If you're not at the table, you're not negotiating.
and that's what the city need to do. I mean, when we
Is
talk
get to
about
the table.
getting youth involved, and that's way. I mean, it, it let that youth see how government works. Civics 101.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Floyd, what you want to leave our audience with today?
well, I just wish that they would get up from whatever they're sitting on and try to get to the polls either before Saturday in October the 10th. to
Mm-hmm.
cast their vote and just don't sit on what they're sitting on and constantly complain.
Yeah. Because in
You know,
five
you
more
same
days,
people.
yeah, in 5 more days, we're gonna know who's moving through the primary to the general election. And
Yeah,
and I want to say, y'all, we have invited again all of the candidates that are on the ballot that have a contested race. If there's an uncontested race, so I think that's District 7, 8, and 9 don't have contested races. No, 7 and 8. Yeah, 7 and
there's
8
three.
don't.
I
No,
think there's
3 has
three.
a yeah, there's 3 of them. I can't remember who the other one is. So 1 is contested, 2 is contested, 3 is contested, 4 is contested, 5 is contested, 6, 7, and 8 are uncontested. 9 is contested. So, or I might have said that backwards. 6, 7, and 9 are uncontested. 8 is contested. So, those 3 races that are uncontested have not been invited to our forum. We have invited all of the other races, including the mayor's race, to the forum. The forum is happening October the 17th at 6 p.m. It will stream live. The memorial service is happening. Oh, and everybody won't be showing up, just the people who make it through the primary. And we made that clear. Like, don't come if you don't win this primary election.
Yeah. I mean, but we wish all the candidates the best. And
Absolutely.
one thing that I want to say to you, Tish, watch your candidates that pick and choose which form that he or she want to participate in.
Absolutely.
Watch the candidate,
Absolutely.
and then it will show you that 301 form is not important.
Not
So
important to them.
as
Absolutely.
but I won't vote for 301. You
Right.
know, uh, you see, but I don't want to participate with 301 there. And that's
Absolutely.
my zip code, in case you don't know where it is. That's my zip code.
Right. Right. I got it. I got it, Floyd. And
Okay.
and our audience, they got it. They got it.
Okay. I'm gonna
Now,
make sure
so
now. Make sure that
yeah,
you understand that now. My zip code is just as important as the zip code across the street.
absolutely.
And I take that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. As we should. As we should. And there's so much what?
Good in the best of us and so much bad in the worst of us. That it behooves none of us to talk about the rest of us. And I see you before Saturday or I see you on October the 10th.
Absolutely. And I can see you real good because I got these glasses on that cover my whole face.
Thanks, thanks. I mean, cover your ears too, T.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. And we love you. We appreciate you for tuning in. We ask that you like, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is you do. Tell a friend to tell a friend because we don't want anybody to miss out on this good information. We hope that you've enjoyed today's program and we will catch you on the next episode.